That summer in the lake house, the air carried a strange heaviness, as if it bore a secret too dense to speak aloud. The heat clung to everything, thick and unmoving. Even the breeze that usually brought relief during long golden evenings had vanished, leaving behind an eerie stillness that made the trees seem moments away from shattering under the pressure. It was the hottest summer we had ever known, and perhaps the loneliest too. My father, always absorbed in his work, had been away for weeks, his absence stretching like a shadow across the house. That left just Mom and me, alone with the silence and something else, something unspoken that hung over us like a storm that hadn't yet broken. He had left early that morning, his goodbye nothing out of the ordinary. But that day, Mom had dressed up more than necessary, her beauty more radiant than usual, like someone heading to an event rather than staying in a lakeside house with her son. When she called me into the dining room, her voice was gentle, almost too gentle, and I felt something tighten in my stomach. She was sitting by the window, her gaze fixed on the lake. Her eyes, usually warm and familiar, carried a different weight that I couldn't place. "We have the house to ourselves today, son," she said softly. "Why don't we go for a walk?" I agreed, not fully understanding why, but there was a tension in her tone that suggested something more urgent than a simple walk. We wandered down the path along the lake, the only sounds being the crunch of our steps and the distant rustle of leaves. The silence between us was not comforting. It was heavy, expectant. She finally spoke, her voice slow, deliberate. "There are things we can't control," she began, "even within the closest of families." Her words dropped into the air like stones into still water, sending ripples through my thoughts. I didn't understand. Why was she saying this now? She paused often, glancing at me as though trying to measure how much truth I could handle. We stopped near the old log cabin we used to visit when I was younger, a place once filled with laughter and light. But today it felt distant, haunted by something I couldn't name. Mom turned to me, her face soft with sorrow, and said something that shook the very ground beneath me. "Your father isn't always where he says he is." Her voice was almost lost in the rising wind, but I heard her. I felt the words hit like a wave, fast and cold, pulling the floor out from under me. She looked away, ashamed, and then added, "I'm not innocent in this either." I could barely breathe. My thoughts scattered in all directions. What was she telling me? What did it mean? "There's someone else, son," she confessed, her voice barely audible. "Someone who comes here, when your father isn't around." I stood frozen, the world suddenly unfamiliar, too quiet, too still. I wanted to scream, to run, to pretend I hadn't heard her. But her eyes, filled with a desperate plea, held me in place. She came closer, her whisper trembling. "Hurry, before your father comes back. I just want you to know." She wasn't just asking for forgiveness, she was asking for silence. She wanted me to carry this secret with her, to preserve a lie so the illusion of our family could survive. I felt my world collapse in that moment. Not just because my father had been betrayed, but because I had too. She had broken something sacred between us, stolen my sense of home. The sound of Dad's car pulling into the driveway snapped us both back to reality. The day's final light cast long shadows across the trees as Mom turned to me, panic flashing in her eyes. "Please don't say anything," she begged. "What happened doesn't matter now. Just keep us together." Dad walked in moments later with his usual cheerfulness, asking about the day as though nothing had changed. I didn't answer. I couldn't. I simply closed the door behind him, the weight of her secret anchoring itself in my chest. From that day on, I lived in two worlds. On the surface, everything looked the same. Dad left early, returned late, greeted us with the same smile that had once made me feel safe. But now, every time he looked at me, I felt a lump rise in my throat. I couldn't meet his eyes. I felt like a stranger in my own home, a keeper of a truth too heavy for my shoulders. Mom, meanwhile, had become a ghost of the woman I once knew. We spent hours together in silence, each trying not to say what couldn't be unsaid. At night, I heard her crying behind the door. I would stand outside, torn between comforting her and confronting her, paralyzed by my own hurt. She hadn't just betrayed my father, she had betrayed me. She had cracked the foundation of everything I believed in. Every kiss she gave him in the morning, every "I love you" whispered in his ear, now looked like a lie, a well-rehearsed performance in a house full of masks. And me? I was caught in the middle of this beautifully tragic illusion. I watched them like an outsider, wondering what it truly meant to love someone, to protect them, and whether lying was sometimes part of that protection. Every day that I kept her secret, the guilt grew inside me. It wasn't hers alone anymore. It had become mine too. Now I ask you, what would you do? Could you carry a truth that could shatter your family? Or would you rather face the storm, knowing that honesty might destroy everything you've ever known? If this story moved you, take a moment to reflect, comment, and share your thoughts. And if you want more raw, emotionally gripping tales that explore the fragile lines between love, truth, and betrayal, stay with us. There's more to come.